and welcome to Conspiracize Me. I am finishing up the third video in this series of assassinations. I tackled Dr. Martin Luther King first, and that was closest to Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Then I hit what is probably the most well-known assassination here in the US, and that would be JFK. And now I am finishing off at least this mini-series by investigating the conspiracy theory surrounding Malcolm X's assassination. Why Malcolm X? I think that's a fair question. Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. both had their fight against the societal norms and laws that held people down, specifically black people. However, they differed the tactics in how to go about stating your case and standing for the cause that you believe in. I watched a movie, Denzel Washington plays Malcolm X. I was really excited about getting into this episode. I watched it way before I did any of the videos in this assassination series, and so I knew one of these videos had to have been for Malcolm X, and this is the one. I want to start off by describing why it is Malcolm X even is a prominent figure in the United States. What is it that he did? What did he stand for? What motivated him to stand up for the rights of those who are persecuted or overlooked in this country, for those who are not given a fair shake, or for whom freedom seems to take less of a value for? Not going to be able to cover this extensively, but of course want to give a roundabout idea so that when we get into the assassination conspiracy theories, it maybe potentially will hit a little bit harder, perhaps have more of an impact. So I have asked ChatGPT this: who was Malcolm X? Why did his life and death matter to the course of our society in this country and to that of other countries? Malcolm X, born Malcolm Little in 1925, was one of the most influential and controversial leaders of the 20th century civil rights era in the United States. He began as a street hustler, went to prison, educated himself intensely behind bars, and converted to Islam. After joining the Nation of Islam, he became its most powerful spokesman. Later, after breaking from the group and making a pilgrimage to Mecca, he adopted a broader, more global view of racial justice. I think interesting that he joined the Nation of Islam. He became their most powerful speaker. And then only then, after he left the group, was he able to break away and make a pilgrimage to Mecca. Mecca, as I understand it, is a location where all Muslims have to, or perhaps very strongly encouraged to, make a visit to once in their lifetime, per their religion, Islam. Malcolm X, being the Muslim that he is, decided to go and visit Mecca after he left the Nation of Islam. I wonder if it's because they put such a burden on his time that he didn't have a chance to break away, or perhaps he thought that his goal with the Nation of Islam was so important and profound, and there was so much that he wanted to do that he just didn't have a chance to break away to Mecca. He was assassinated in 1965 in New York City. He was assassinated when he was 45 years old, give or take. Why his life mattered. Number one, he changed how black identity was talked about in America. And as we know, how you talk about something certainly shapes and frames the way you think about it. And the way that you think about something is ultimately going to determine how you live, how you act. And thus that will determine the society and the culture, and that will determine the future and the world that your children are brought into. Changing the way that you talk about an identity is very crucial to the future of so many people who carry that identity. At a time when the dominant civil rights message associated with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. emphasized integration and nonviolence, Malcolm X emphasized black self-respect, self-defense, economic independence, and psychological liberation from white supremacy. He encouraged thinking for yourself, being self-sustainable. He helped popularize the idea that black Americans didn't need white approval to claim dignity and power. That message reshaped cultural confidence and later fed directly into the Black Power movement. So he put some steel into the spine of those who were brought up to believe that they needed a handout, that they needed the good graces of those from a different race in order to have any sort of self-respect. Malcolm X fought against that idea. Number 2, he internationalized the civil rights struggle. So instead of it just staying here in this country, he brought the message and he brought the focus outside of this country. After leaving the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X began framing racism in America not just as a civil rights issue, but as a human rights issue. He traveled to Africa and the Middle East and tried to bring U.S. racial discrimination before the United Nations. It linked American racial injustice to global anti-colonial movements. Countries in Africa and Asia that had recently won independence saw parallels between colonial oppression and racism in the U.S. So Malcolm became a spokesperson after he left the Nation of Islam for pretty much those in the entire world who were looking to outgrow the small box, the small frame that they were brought into. He was helping people to outgrow the limited identity that they were led to believe by those who were oppressing them. A sort of oppressive power. Malcolm X helped people to think differently and to believe and to understand that there is a self-respect amongst all humans, not certain humans, but all humans. Number 3, he exposed the limits of American democracy. I know we in this country believe that we have found something so magnetic that it drives people to this country, and I'm not speaking against what we have found, but there are limits to everything. Every good thing can be a better thing. Malcolm was blunt. He criticized American hypocrisy. Preaching freedom abroad while denying equality at home is what he was preaching against. That sharp critique forced the country to confront uncomfortable truths. Even people who disagreed with him were pushed to respond. His presence moved the conversation. Can you just imagine if the ideas, the things that you talked about got families who came together on the holidays to talk about the very things that you were speaking up about, to have such an influence in society that you become a household name, and just the fact that bringing up your name would stir conversations and people would be on wildly opposite ends of the spectrum and would have no choice but to have a conversation, because the very mention of your name sparks ideas that need to be confronted. That's what Malcolm X was. Why his death mattered. His assassination in 1965 deepened distrust between black communities and U.S. institutions, fueled suspicion of government surveillance and infiltration, especially given FBI monitoring under COINTELPRO, accelerated radicalization among some younger activists. After his death, his autobiography became one of the most influential political memoirs ever published. It shaped generations of activists globally. His death sparked so many more little Malcolm X's to spring up and decide that they also want to speak up with their lives. They also have ideas they think can bring change. So often, the death of someone who is polarizing, the assassination of someone who is a key figure to a movement, it only serves to make it stronger, to be the strong gust of wind behind the fire that has already been burning uncontrollably. And again, I say that is who Malcolm X was. His ideas influenced the Black Panther Party, anti-apartheid activities in South Africa, Muslim communities in the West, modern conversations about systemic racism. Malcolm X mattered because he forced America to look at itself without flinching. And I will say this, anybody who encourages you to look at yourself, to do a self-inventory, to do a self-discovery, to do a self-monitoring, anything that causes you to stop for a moment, look at yourself and re-evaluate yourself, your thoughts, your mind, your direction, your motivation, that is a good thing. Malcolm X was one leader of many influential leaders who served to point the direction of the attention of this country inward, not in such a way as I'm better than the rest of the world, but in such a way as to ask what needs to be fixed, what needs to be changed, what needs to be addressed, so that all people who are created equal feel that way, so that all people who are created equal get equal opportunity, get equal treatment, get equal justice. Malcolm X represented anger that wasn't sanitized, intelligence that was self-taught and razor sharp, a man who evolved publicly. I mean, this guy self-educated himself in prison. He came out guns a-blazing, metaphorically. And if this guy can do that, can educate himself to the point where his thoughts, his ideas, his very presence was undeniable, then anybody who is motivated enough can do that too. Malcolm X shows us that it is possible. This is the reason why Malcolm X caught my attention. Whenever I would learn about him in school, that movie that I watched, played by Denzel Washington, the very motivation, what stirred Malcolm X to speak, to act, was the fact that he saw injustice. He felt it to the core. And it wasn't just something that was happening outside of him. It was happening to his very people. It was happening to the black community, even to the point of he became a Muslim. And recognizing that even those of a different religion get treated differently. So these were things that were happening to him. And this is what sparked him. This was what motivated him to keep on going, keep on learning, keep on having conversations, keep on trying to win people over. Malcolm X's evolution, especially his move toward a more universal human solidarity before his death, shows something important. He was not static. He was growing. And growth is the name of the game. If you're a human being, if you're alive, it is your responsibility to grow. That is how you take advantage of your life. That is how you take advantage of your potential. You grow every day. You take it as an opportunity to grow. Expand your mind, expand your ideas, expand what you know, find out what you don't know, and use that to propel you to be a better human being, to be a better thinker, to be a better person. It is the responsibility of us all as human beings with thinking brains and reasoning minds to be growing daily. Now that we know a little bit about Malcolm X, let's go ahead and look at the conspiracies that surround his death. I've asked ChatGPT, what are the conspiracies around Malcolm X's assassination? Start with the official story, then let's hit the conspiracies. The official story: on February 21st, 1965, Malcolm X was assassinated while speaking at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City. 3 members of the Nation of Islam were convicted. Talmaj Hayer, also known as Thomas Hagen, admitted gunman. Muhammad Abdul Aziz and Khalil Islam. The official explanation: Malcolm had publicly broken with the Nation of Islam, criticized its leader Elijah Muhammad, and received threats. Members of the group assassinated him in retaliation. For decades, that was the settled narrative. However, in 2021, Aziz and Islam were exonerated after new evidence showed prosecutors and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, that's the FBI, had withheld information that likely would have cleared them. So even the official story was flawed. I feel like with any conspiracy theory, the FBI is involved. All the conspiracy theory videos I've done thus far, the FBI has been mentioned quite a bit. Now we move into disputed territory. Number 1, FBI involvement or foreknowledge. The FBI had Malcolm under heavy surveillance through COINTELPRO, a program aimed at disrupting black political movements. There is no proven evidence the FBI ordered the killing, but there is a documented evidence of infiltration, surveillance, withheld evidence in court. That fuels distrust. Okay, so the FBI was inside and close to Malcolm X and his movement. They were watching him. They were listening to his conversations. And in court, when it came time to testify as to who was responsible for his death, evidence was withheld. So obviously there's some distrust there. Number 2, NYPD complicity or negligence. The New York City Police Department had undercover officers inside the ballroom. Conspiracy claims include police security was suspiciously light that day. Officers in the audience did not intervene quickly. Some believe the police intentionally reduced protection. Number 3, internal Nation of Islam power struggles. Some believe the killing was not just rogue members acting out, but sanctioned, or at least encouraged, by leadership within the Nation of Islam. Of course, you've got this guy who comes out of the Nation of Islam. He's speaking against its leaders, and there's suspicion that the leaders encouraged, even sanctioned, his assassination. I think that's completely possible. No conclusive evidence shows Elijah Muhammad ordered it directly, but Malcolm had publicly accused him of misconduct. Tensions were extremely high. Violent rhetoric had escalated. Number 4, broader government plot. The most expansive conspiracy theory claims U.S. intelligence agencies viewed Malcolm as a serious international threat. He's going everywhere, and he's winning hearts and minds wherever he goes, not just here in America, but abroad. He's shining light on the deficiencies of our country. He's not only causing the country to look in on itself and see what needs to change, he's causing other people in other places to look at us and see, oh, well, they're not so great after all, are they? They really treat people like this in their country? His attempts to bring U.S. racism before the United Nations alarmed federal officials. He's trying to put us on trial before the United Nations. He's trying to say that there's a problem with the way that we treat our people. He thinks we're going to go before the United Nations and testify? Oh, he's really making a push for it. Therefore, agencies allowed or facilitated his death. This theory connects to the broader pattern of surveillance and disruption of civil rights leaders during that era. But to be clear, there is no documented proof of a direct federal assassination order. Here's what's unproven. Direct FBI or CIA orchestration, explicit NYPD coordination with the killers, a signed order from federal leadership. Well, if you're going to withhold evidence, I'd imagine that you also can tamper with evidence. So I'd imagine that you can wash any involvement the FBI or CIA might have had. I would imagine that you could also do that with the NYPD. I'd imagine that you can exonerate yourselves. I'd imagine that you can wash yourselves clean. Any agency within the U.S. can wash itself clean. So we didn't do this. You have all the evidence. And when you combine surveillance programs like COINTELPRO, wrongful convictions, and suppressed evidence, you don't get wild fancy. You get justified public distrust. So here's the thing about these videos. It's not meant to, I'm not going to uncover the truth. I can't even claim to be anywhere near what is necessary to uncover the truth. But the question is, was there foul play? And is it possible that our country and those who are tasked and paid for by taxpayers to protect the country and our way of life and to protect our people and our rights, is it possible that they got their hands dirty and then scrubbed them clean so as not to portray themselves as capable of committing such an atrocity as assassinating a key figure that many in this country believed in? I think it's important to note that if the FBI, the CIA, the local police department, those in power, if they are tasked with protecting the livelihood, protecting the way of life of Americans, then I think it's quite possible for them, perhaps in their deranged lunacy, to look at a man who's trying to create equal opportunities and trying to open up the minds of people who feel suppressed, taken advantage of. I think it's possible that these people of power want to squash and put out the flame of hope that is given to those at the lower rungs of society so that they are not empowered to speak up, to rise up. I think if Malcolm X teaches us anything, he teaches us the importance of having conversations with each other, the importance of being self-taught, of a continued education outside of a university, outside of a classroom, continuing to read books on your own that teach you new ideas, that help you to look at the world from different angles. I think it's everyone's responsibility as individuals to continue to grow and not stay where you are, to not be stagnant, and to share that information, to share that knowledge and that hope and that encouragement with others. Wake people up to a better reality. Wake people up to see that there's more about us and around us than what meets the eye. There is growth no matter what level you're at. And I think that's what Malcolm X teaches us. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Middle Eastern, whether you're whatever, growth is available to everyone. And if we want to talk about God-given rights, if we want to talk about inalienable rights, we all have the right to exercise our ability for growth. I do want to cover one more thing and I'll be done, and it's this COINTELPRO thing. What is COINTELPRO? I heard about it in the MLK case, and I heard about it here. COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program. It was a covert operation run by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, from 1956 to 1971. Its stated purpose was to protect national security by monitoring and disrupting groups considered subversive. So groups that were all about getting together and undermining the authority. If these people are getting together and thinking about ways that they can outgrow or outmaneuver or change the laws that are holding them down, That's what COINTELPRO was for. Hey, there are people getting together who don't like the way the system runs. Why don't we take a look at what they're talking about, what they're doing, the activities that they're planning, and stop it when necessary? That's COINTELPRO. Its actual methods: surveillance, infiltration, harassment, disinformation, and psychological warfare against U.S. citizens. They literally will do anything, even to their own people, in order to stop big institutional change from taking place. If you want to change a little bit of things, if you want to change your campus, if you want to change your family, if you want to change your community, go ahead and do that. But if you want to change and disrupt the country, you've got another thing coming. If you have a loud enough voice, they're coming after you to silence you. Who did COINTELPRO target? Originally, it targeted the Communist Party. They had a great excuse to get started. The majority of Americans would say yes to COINTELPRO against communism. We don't want them creating such a following that they change the course of this country, because we are headed in the complete opposite direction of communism. But it expanded to include civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party, anti-Vietnam War activists, socialist and nationalists groups, some women's liberation and student organizations. So they literally said, if an activist group gets too big, if a leader gets too big, then we need to chop them down. The key phrase the FBI used was prevent the rise of a black messiah. I just kind of feel like maybe this didn't end in 1971, that maybe it goes under a different name. Maybe the FBI swallowed up the COINTELPRO and is itself now a form of COINTELPRO, but they don't want to label themselves as such. Documented tactics included planting informants inside organizations, forging letters to create internal distrust, leaking damaging information to the press, pressuring employers to fire activists, attempting to break up marriages, encouraging factional conflict. They will come at your life. They will come at your finances. They will come at your relationships. They will come at your way of life. They will come at your quality of life and dismantle you. In MLK's case, the FBI even sent him an anonymous letter implying he should kill himself. That's demonic. How did it become public? In 1971, activists broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole internal documents. Those documents exposed COINTELPRO to the press. After public outrage, Congress launched investigations, the Church Committee, which confirmed extensive abuse of power. COINTELPRO was officially shut down in 1971. I'm not completely convinced that COINTELPRO didn't survive under a different name. Why is it that COINTELPRO had their hands on Martin Luther King's movement and he was assassinated, and also had their hands in Malcolm X's movement and he was assassinated? Why is it that COINTELPRO was involved in these two key political figures, civil rights movement leaders, that happened to be assassinated? I think it's completely possible that the FBI turned a blind eye, and in that turning, I think they further got involved by manipulating, withholding, and potentially even doctoring and changing documents within the Malcolm X case. I have been conspiracized to believe that those within our justice system is partially to blame for not upholding justice to a man who gave his life for justice. That is ironic. What he teaches us today is to simply use your brain. Don't stop growing. Don't stop learning. Don't stop asking questions. Don't stop reframing things and working ideas and new thoughts into your perspective, and try to challenge yourself. Try to challenge your beliefs. Question why you believe something. I'm not saying to change your beliefs, but question whether it is you believe something about a certain person, group of people, ideology, religion, whatever it is. Why do you believe what you believe? Look inward. As Malcolm X challenged America and Americans to look inward, so let this look back at Malcolm X be a challenge to each one of us to look inward and challenge ourselves to be better, accept the challenge to grow. So for this, we thank Malcolm X for inspiring us to become greater people. Thanks for watching.